empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, 20 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We are live tonight. Excuse me. And it is on to 2023. We have the big news. Obviously, CJ Stroud has declared for the draft. But on the flip, Lathan Ransom has decided to return for his final year at Ohio State. That is huge for the back end of our defense. We don't have to replace everybody back there. So that is great news for us. We are going to talk a little bit about the amount of statistical leaders we have coming back on offense is almost something I've never heard of. We did some analysis earlier. We're going to show you a couple shots of some of the new linemen. Donnie Jackson's likely to move to left tackle. Josh Fryer likely to be the right tackle. We got a couple of highlight shots of them where I really like what they do. And we're going to break down some prospects. So loaded show for you guys leading into the Cowboys and Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. So we appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. As always, we are always thankful for you guys. Please hit that like button, hit subscribe. We appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in, hanging out with us for about an hour. Appreciate all the questions, the comments. Those things are all huge for us. Click that little alert bell. If you enjoy these live shows, you'll get a little alert on your phone that'll say that we are going live. We're going to try to do these pretty much every night. We love doing these. We love interacting with you guys. You guys make the show just as much as we do. What is up, Sue? Sue, first comment of the day. Appreciate you, as always, tuning in. Thank you so much. So with that being said, bring in my good friend, Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Well, I'm doing a lot better than you're doing there, Mr. Barton. Sounds like you got the old frog in your throat or something like that.
Let me drink some of my tea.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
There you go. Your favorite.
Super awesome.
Do you need to break down some of the statistics you were talking about earlier this afternoon? Because it got me kind of like excited about the 23 team, but you know, I can't believe how much we're returning in terms of the 23 team versus the 22 team. And the opportunity that Kyle McCord has to really be all Big Ten Heisman type quarterback. What are your thoughts on what is coming back in 2023?
Well, I just went through and just kind of did a little statistical overview of the 2022 season, and then looked at kind of who's returning for 2023, from a weapon standpoint. And like I said, I don't have it exactly here in front of me, but the bottom line is when you look at the number one wide receiver, the number two the number one wide receiver in Marvin, the number two in Emeka, the number three in Julian Fleming, Cade Stover, Xavier Johnson. I mean, we're literally returning. I want to say it's like 99% of our receiving yards from last year we're returning. I think that the highest person that we're not returning is Jackson Smith-Njigba and his 5 receptions. So that's thing. Secondly, then you look at the rushing side and you go, Mayan, Trey, Dallin, Chip, Xavier. I mean, what we're missing in rushing yards is CJ Stroud's 130 yards or whatever he rushed for, and that's it. Everybody else is returning. So it's like 99% of our receiving production and 96% of our rushing production is returning for 2023. And it's pretty crazy. I mean, I can't remember. I'm sure there have been seasons where we've had that happen, but I've also know there's been seasons when we've lost most of all our top guys, and we're returning like 11 total receptions and no career touchdowns, and asking a new quarterback to kind of make it with that. Whoever's stepping into the quarterback spot is stepping into the rocking chair, because we're having more weapons, more proven weapons at the college level than I've ever seen at Ohio State. I mean, it's literally, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. And I think Devin Brown or Kyle McCord are inheriting just a great spot for them to go out there and have an all Big Ten type of season. And the more I think about 2023, the more I look at what we're turning and we're doing, I'm convinced it's going to be a big year for Ohio State, and statistically going to be a big year for whoever wins that quarterback derby.
And you're calling that the 23 team will be better than the 22 team, correct?
I am. I think the 2020. I think it'll be markedly better. I think it's going to be a lot better. I think today with the news of Lathan Ransom returning, when we were looking at the possible, early entrance to the NFL and what we were kind of predicting when we kind of went there, I mean, Ohio State has come out of this about as well as you could possibly have imagined. Everybody that could conceivably have returned has returned, and the only guys that left were the ones that were dead set locks to leave. And getting back guys like Ransom, getting back guys like Eichenberg. I mean, you're returning an awful lot defensively on a team that showed flashes of being a dominant defense last year. Obviously, stunk it up the last 3 games, but before that, it was really doing a nice job. And offensively, I think they're going to be prolific. So, very excited.
I agree with you. I think that when there's a lot of guys that want to leave after their junior year, go 3 and out, there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of, gaining stock at stake where guys kind of sharpen their pencils and tune in a little bit more. So, obviously Marvin and Emeka want to be top 10 picks next year. I think, JT probably has his eye on declaring, and he has to have more than 3 sacks to play in the NFL at a high level. Mike Hall, and some of these guys, it might be unrealistic, but, the thing I tell these guys that are third-year guys going into their 4th year is that you would at least have the option. You can't be a guy where it's like, well, yeah, you have no chance of getting drafted or you're going to be a 7th round pick or a late round pick. Like, you want to at least have the option of going high. So, when these guys are training and these guys are, hey, should I go get another workout in today? Hey, should I get another treatment in today? Should I, do another cold plunge today? It's like, when you're thinking about, man, I really got to have a monster option type season, then a lot of these guys, I think they're gonna play better. They're gonna be more focused. If I'm a guy like Tyleik Williams, I put the spoon down and I go do a little bit more cardio and get in better shape so you can play longer. I mean, I think that some of these guys, they've been hamstrung by some wacky rotations, to say the least. I've been critical of the rotations. The fact that Tyleik and Mike Hall don't play enough. Jack Sawyer doesn't play enough. Those guys that are in front of them are all deleted. They're all gone. They're all seniors. They're off to the NFL or wherever they end up. And there's no more roadblocks, so to speak, for these guys to get it in and go play their spot. So I think that that's huge. I think that we talked at length today about Tommy Eichenberg. Tommy Eichenberg is a kid a year ago that was, people, when they heard the name, they were thinking, is he like a tough Borland? Is he a guy that can play at all? Is he a guy that every time we see him on the field, we're like, why can't we do better? And now, like, after a year, with Jim Knowles coaching the linebackers and Jim Knowles' system, he easily could have been a first-team All-American last year, and he's a second-team All-American, so he'll be a preseason All-American. He'll be the favorite for the Buckeyes trophy. He should have been a finalist this past year. What a difference a year has made for Tommy Eichenberg. Obviously, Steele came back next to him, so they have that chemistry playing together. And, when we only run 2 linebackers 99% of the time in Jim Knowles' defense, I think that there's a lot of guys, a lot to prove. I think there's a lot of guys, especially out on the edges. Some lost seasons last year. Denzel Burke, that cornerback room was just, Jordan Hancock. There's some guys that got a lot to prove, but it ain't because they're not going to be getting able to get sharpened up in practice when they got to see Marvin and Emeka. Because when you got to see those guys every day in practice, you better eat your Wheaties, because those guys will make you look terrible if you're not locked in and ready to roll. Nevada, who do you feel could make the next leap? Is there a guy that is like a Tommy Eichenberg from this time last year that, I remember when we talked about last year when we hired Jim Knowles, how Tommy could be a big beneficiary because he is a linebacker guru. He's a guy, he kind of runs the linebacker room. Is there a guy that you could see making a leap similar to what Tommy Eichenberg did from 2021 to 2022?
Well, I think it's a pair of guys. I think it's JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. I think those guys are going to take big jumps up. I think they're going to become the kind of players that we all thought that they would, maybe last year or when they came out of high school. And I think those 2 guys are going to be. I think they're the key to the 2023 season. I think they know that. I think they're both double-digit sack guys next year, and you start getting that kind of production out of your defensive ends, and that's Chase Young-like. And I'm looking at those guys to both have big years. But, look, 2023 is going to be a big year. If as a fan, if you want to get depressed, look at 2024 and look at all the talent we're going to be losing out in 2023 year. So, like, you better enjoy 2023 because it's just like, Marvin and Emeka and Jack and JT and Tommy and Steele, and I mean, like, we're just going to get ravaged in 2024. But that's the great thing about college football is that there's always another bumper crop of young guys that you're looking to see. Look, I'm looking forward to seeing Sonny Styles this year. I can't wait to see C.J. Hicks. I can't wait to see some of these guys that we saw. A couple of plays here, a couple of plays here, but we've heard some rave reviews coming out of camp about those guys. So I can't wait to see them on the field. But 2023 is going to be a big year for Ohio State, and like I said, I can't wait for kickoff. I can't wait for spring football. Can't wait for kickoff, and the QB Derby is going to be one for the ages because it's going to be two great kids going at it with a loaded bunch of weapons to go to.
I totally agree. I think that with Sonny, Kai Stokes, I mean, we have some guys that really flash early in spring, flash in practice. They're kind of buried in the depth. They weren't rotating in, which again was something that was perplexing to us. How Sonny Styles couldn't play over some of the guys that were getting minutes in front of him. It's going to be interesting to see if some of that gets rectified now that some of those guys have moved on. I think Sonny's got to be, he's a top 11 guy. He's got to be a starter next year. He's going to play major minutes, and you just got to kind of build your defense around a guy like him because he can do so many things. He's physically among the most imposing players I've ever seen at Ohio State for his size, stature, athleticism. He's just a tremendously easy athlete. Like you see some of these guys that, whatever, if they pick up a baseball bat, they're going to hit it 450 feet. If they pick up a basketball, they're going to do 360 windmill dunks. He picks up a golf club, he's probably driving the green 300 yards. He's just like that kind of athlete. And I think that, you got to deploy him because the thing about Sonny is, and I'll say this in bold, he's only going to be here for 3 years. So you got 2 years left of him. He played about 12 plays this past year, it seemed like. So you better start getting it in with that kid because, his schedule, a lot like Quinn Ewers, he didn't, graduate high school a year early to stay in college for 5 years. He did it so he could be 3 and out and be a 20-year-old rookie in the NFL. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. It was interesting when we went through the statistical analysis, how, who's our biggest loss on offense? Obviously, outside of CJ, who's significant, but, Jackson didn't really play. Mitch Rossi didn't really play. The O-line is going to be rebuilt, but I think you can gin it up with this O-line. I think there's enough talent in that room that you'll be fine. I don't really worry about the O-line when you have skill like we do, because it's no different than like an NFL team at the end of the season when all of a sudden they have multiple guys that are hurt. Like the Bengals last night with Joe Burrow. They were missing their left tackle. That was a first-round pick. They're missing their right tackle. They paid a fortune to. They're missing their right guard. They paid a fortune to. And they still managed to beat the Baltimore Ravens, who have one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL. So, if you're smart, you can gin it up. We've got some really talented guys. I think Donnie Jackson's a superstar. He's a guy that is going to be on 3-and-out watch for sure. But no, I'm excited. I love the theme that the 23 team is better because I agree. I think that the young guys on the D line can be more productive than the old guys. Zach, Teron, those guys, Jaron. God bless them, but I will take Tyleek, Mike Hall, JT, Jack Sawyer. If you guys are in the chat right now, type who you think would be the next Tommy Eichenberg guy to make that monumental leap from being a guy that most of the fan base wanted benched and he turned into an All-American. Is there a guy out there like that for you guys? I see Mike Hall. I see Jack Sawyer. You guys are punching in some names. What's up, Neil? 401 deals. I love when you say that. That's always good. Jordan Hancock, that'd be a huge one. I see you, CB, you put that. And if you have any questions for Nevada and I, Nevada, with how deep the offense is, what are your realistic expectations for the freshmen? Because we have Brandon is coming, we have Carnell Tate, we have the Rogers brothers, Jelani Thurman. Do you think any of those guys could actually make a significant impact this year in 2023 with how deep the skill groups are?
Well, I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tough, Jamie. There's no substitute for experience. Obviously, the one guy who I've always thought was kind of a have to play him the minute he sets foot on campus guy is Brandon Ennis. Brandon Ennis is just different. He's just a different kind of player. And, the good thing about wide receivers, it's pretty much kind of go out there, run the routes, get open. And if you're open, I'll throw you the ball. You catch the ball. So I think it's a little bit easier for a guy to come in out of high school and play that position than maybe any other position on the field. Even running back, because running backs, people say, oh, you just got to run the ball, but you got to know the protections too. And if you don't know the protections, you can get somebody killed. But at wide receiver, it's pretty much run fast, get open, catch ball when you do. And I think Brandon Inniss can do that as well as anybody I've seen in a very long time. So I'd say of all the players, he's the one guy that's going to do it. Now, he's also the one kid who's disadvantaged because he's not in for spring ball. And so that's something that's going to hurt his ability to contribute as mightily in 2023. But no, we got a lot of weapons. Going to be tough for guys to find their way into the field. And now again, all of this is subject to change pending the other transfer portal window coming out in spring, and it's going to be incumbent upon Ryan Day to keep all these weapons there, engaged, happy, motivated, and on the roster into 2023, when you take this inevitable national championship run.
Yeah, I think that's something that obviously will bear watching after spring ball is people that aren't satisfied with what they perceive or project as their roles to be, because again, there's got to be guys that leave. That's just part of college football. I'm always positive about this stuff, but it's like, we got a lot of talent and these guys all want to play. So this is kind of where we're at with the game. But yeah, I think Inniss is a guy that even if he gets here late, for his skill set, especially in the middle of the field, he's the guy that could really do some damage. And he just has a different mentality. Like he's a kid that he's got to try to get up on the weekends during spring ball, try to be in the meetings, try to absorb as much as he can. I think that with technology and the ability for a kid to learn from distance is something that didn't exist, frankly, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. For instance, when I signed with Ohio State, there wasn't like a, hey, we can send the film and do a Zoom meeting with you and watch the film and go over the film and go through the playbook. Now with your support staff being as big as it is and the ability to do that, I mean, he can say in the install and learn the plays at the same rate that the freshmen are. So that's huge. But again, it's not the same as being here, because when you're here, they can do walkthroughs, they can do stuff like, I would imagine that the skill guys are learning the offense already. Like they've been here for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever. And they're probably already being installed the stuff so that they already have a pretty fluent knowledge of it when the time spring ball hits. So that's something that you can't replicate when you're stuck down in South Florida like Brandon is. But, they can do the best they can. But there's nothing like actually being there, being in the meetings, sitting with Marvin and Emeka and being able to ask those guys questions. That's a huge deal. Does Day keep Parker Fleming? Sue, this is a good question. Nevada, we've got really good sources in the WAC that said that he is safe. I believe if Ryan Day tells a coach they are safe, then they truly are safe. It'd be interesting to see if he would renege on that. But Nevada, your thoughts on Parker Fleming last year, and is he safe going into 2023?
Well, I think Ryan Day has proven himself to be necessarily ruthless, and if he had a chance to improve his staff or do something that we needed to do, I think he would do it. Now, having said that, I don't think that's a move that they're going to make. I think there's one more pending move that I think could possibly be made. But like I said, we don't we've teased about it, but we haven't really speculated on it because I think it's unfair to to the coach. But I don't think it'll be Parker Fleming. I think Parker is a guy that's probably probably going to be here for a bit, and we'll see. That's certainly the information that we have now. Watch as soon as we finish and post the podcast, they'll announce that Parker Fleming's going to become the coach at Texas A&M or something else like that. But no, I think he's safe. I think he'll be here in 2023 and probably beyond that.
Here's a great question for you. How much more respect did Ryan Day demand in NIL had he beaten Georgia and brought the 6-4 the trophy? That is an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I think that something Nevada and I talk about is, I know we lost, we didn't win the national championship, but, we played really well. It was obviously we missed a field goal. So there isn't anybody like Georgia that thinks, oh yeah, we stink, Big Ten stinks, whatever. But I think you kind of get diminishing returns. Like if you win or lose the Georgia game, obviously winning is much more important. It's much better. Winning the national championship is obviously much better. But, going into the next year, I don't know. I think it helps you a little bit. But, when we won the national championship in 2002, like our next recruiting class wasn't like some fantastic like bumper crop of players. And even when we won it in 2014, it wasn't like the next year we followed up and had the number one overall recruiting class. And in terms of the NIL conference, I think it kind of is what it is. I think if people want to give, then they'll give. If they don't, they won't. I think that the thing I always go back to when I talk to the Cohesion Foundation, or I talk to Brian Schottenstein's group, or any of those guys, is I talked to Cardell. I just think it's a very hard sell. Like, I've sold multiple things in my life. I've sold subscriptions to a website, insurance, cars, and like some things are just inherently easier to sell. Like if you have a really hot car, I mean, that thing's going to sell easy. You don't really have to be much of a sales guy. But like selling NIL, where, okay, so what do I get? If I give you $10,000, what do I get? And the answer that I get from both funds is access. Maybe you get to go watch a practice. Maybe you get to go out to eat with one of these guys. And I'm like, okay, well, for 10 grand, I could take myself out to eat wherever I want. So it's just a weird sell. Nevada, I know me and you kind of joke about NIL in terms of, okay, I'm going to donate money so that CJ Stroud can go buy a new mink coat or something. And it's like, or another set of rims for his G-Wagon or Bentley. But that's kind of what it feels like to me. Do you have a different take on NIL? I don't like spending much time on it just because I know that nobody cares about NIL really. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, like you said, it's a downer for people to talk about. So, yeah, I want to move on to some more uplifting topic as soon as possible. But I just think that OSU's just got to continue to professionalize their NIL approach. It's a necessary evil in 2023. But, like I said, they've got to, some of the stuff that goes on with the NIL and with the collectives, to me, looks a little Mickey Mouse. And I think they've got to stop that stuff and, really, look like the big boys, because sometimes it doesn't look like the big boys. And when you're talking about, 10, 12, 14, $15 million a year that you're needing to raise, then you need to have serious people doing serious things in there. And I just think that's probably what needs to happen.
Totally agree. Next question. Who replaces Noah Ruggles? Parker Lewis looks like he's a leader in the clubhouse, a transfer from SC. I could see, I can't imagine they couldn't get the number one kicker in America to transfer in, but would you go with Parker Lewis? Do you even know? Do you even care after last year? Or?
Well, I mean, look, field goal kicking doesn't matter until it matters, kind of like that, like that Michigan kicker. I mean, do I think the Michigan kicker would have made that last kick against Georgia? Yeah, probably. He was putting him right down the middle every time, and so the people at SC like Parker Lewis a lot. I think he can. I think he came here for a reason. I think he came here and he didn't come here to sit. That's for sure. So that'd be my leader in the clubhouse, and hopefully we don't have too many games decided by kicks, because I hate it when games are decided by kicks, because the whole 59 and a half minutes doesn't matter. It all comes down to one snap, one hold, and one kick, and that's not really where I want to be. I want the games to have no doubt.
Totally agree. This is a great question, Philip. Who will be the breakout special teams player next year in an area that seemed to be lacking? But it's so interesting because special teams used to be a lot more significant in college football in the pre-fair catch kickoff days when you actually had to return every kickoff or kick a touchback. I feel like the punting game with the Aussie punting has just gone to skying the ball, having the gunners run down, yell a bunch of nasty stuff for the returner, they fair catch it, sit there. So I feel like those two phases are almost gone now. Nevada, anyone that you think would stand out as a special teams team? And I don't feel like there's the opportunity there used to be. It makes me think of a CJ Hicks, Chip Trainum. It drove me crazy that we didn't put Jaden Ballard back on punts this year because we had a backup back there, and Emeka already is running 65 plays a game. So you'd think you'd give him a blow and throw Jaden Ballard about him. But anybody that pops out to you about him?
Well, to me, those young wide receivers, I'd like to see, either one of the Rodgers or Carnell Tate or Brandon Ennis covering kicks and going down there and laying it on, because they all play both ways in high school. And, I like seeing those young guys that can run, seeing Chris Olave. Remember, one of the first big plays Chris Olave ever made at Ohio State was blocking a punt. So, I'd like special teams to get back to being special, making plays. Lathan Ransom had a big punt block for us this year. But I look for one of the young guys, specifically again wide receivers, to make their impact felt on special teams and hopefully make it early.
A Josh Proctor update. Richard Black on the scoop. Bill Greene thinks there's a shot that Josh Proctor will transfer to the Florida Gators, but I don't know. I don't really care, just because I think Josh is he's been a bit of an enigma. I think he's a nice kid, but he's a guy that I really thought was going to have a big year last year, and he really didn't play at all. Anything else on Proctor, Nevada? Again, it's a guy that we had really high hopes for. We heard great things about him, and then he was just kind of persona non grata after that first game.
Yeah, with Josh, it's like you said. I personally like Josh, and I like Josh both as a person and as a player. So, but it's obvious that there's some sort of disconnect between Josh and the existing defensive staff, because when they pull him after 4 plays against Notre Dame, and then he literally doesn't see the field, and then in bowl prep they had entire packages for him where he was playing the Sam linebacker, doing a lot of things out there, that looked really good in the run up to the Georgia game, and then they don't play him at all. So it doesn't seem to me like they have plans for him. Now, again, the way that the rotations have been on both sides of the ball, they'll probably run out in spring ball and feature him, and he'll have 20 tackles or something. But if I had to bet, usually when things like this go, they usually go for a reason, and it's usually best in that situation that somebody move on to greener pastures, and it's usually best for both involved. But it's not because Josh can't play. Josh is a heck of a player. It just, for whatever reason, they haven't been that high on him, and that is their prerogative.
Yeah, it was maybe the most perplexing thing. Again, I posted a quote on BuckeyeScoop.com. If you guys don't belong to BuckeyeScoop.com, if you enjoy these podcasts, we basically do this 24 hours a day on BuckeyeScoop.com. So we're taking questions, talking ball, talking about some stuff. But Jim Knowles literally said that on August 12th, I literally ripped the quote, and he said Josh Proctor could be the best safety in the nation this year. That was on August 12th. So less than 3 weeks before Notre Dame. Plays against Notre Dame, plays like the first 4 plays, and then gets the hook, and it was like never to be seen from again. So, I mean, that was a stunning fall from grace from a guy that literally, if your position coach says you could be the best one of those in the nation, like if my position coach when I played said Kirk could be the best offensive tackle in the entire country, and then after 4 plays I get pulled, you never see me play again. Like it just raises an eyebrow, like something else is up, something else. Maybe off the field or an attitude thing. I don't know what it is, but it was perplexing to say the least. Nevada, this is a great question, Sue. This is something that comes with, we do a lot of Showtime updates in the winter where we get a lot of info from bowl practice. We talk a little bit about some of the young guys. People love hearing about who's next, who are the next young guys that are kind of showing out in the scrimmage portions of bowl practice. And we got a bunch of updates this bowl practice, man. And I didn't hear anything about any of the young wide receivers from the 2022 class. Nevada, Sue asks, I wonder how many of the 2022 wide receivers transfer out. Seems like they've been recruited over. I think that might be a little early to say, just because the Rogers brothers and Carnell Tate haven't really done anything other than a couple workouts so far. But your thoughts on the lack of information that we got about Caleb Burton, who, again, there's people I talked to in Texas that say he's a player, Kojo Antwi. I mean, there's some guys that were heralded guys. But with Innocent Tate coming in, man, it's going to be tough sledding, not to mention all of the depth in front of them not moving at all. But your thoughts on that 2022 wide receiver class?
Yeah, I think it's unlike anything I've ever seen before, because, you're not talking about a class that only had one guy. You had multiple guys come in that were all super highly regarded, and it's been no information. I mean, nothing bad, but nothing good. And generally, in this business, no news is generally bad news. And I'm not saying that in a way like, oh, they're gone forever, or they can never make a contribution here, but they certainly haven't flashed in a significant manner yet at Ohio State, and that's odd because I just never seen that happen before. Normally, somebody separates themselves, somebody else is kind of right behind them, and other guys are doing what they're doing. But with this group, it's been almost nothing, and that's it's been odd. And look, it's always with everything. When guys come back, when guys start playing well, you always have to remember it means something to somebody else. Somebody else, when somebody comes back or somebody else plays well, it means somebody else on the depth chart is either looking at transferring, portaling, or seeking other options because they're not going to have the opportunity to play. And with the wide receiver room, I mean, we're returning. The good news is we're returning 99% of our receptions from last year. The bad news for these freshmen is we're returning 99% of our receptions from last year. So, yeah, it's going to be a battle. I think spring's going to really tell the tale. We'll start to hear some of the names, and I'm going to be interested to see who it is because it's not readily evident who it's going to be just yet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fascinating spring for a lot of these guys that are kind of the tier 2 of the team. Obviously the top tier, the Cade Stover. I think Joe Royer is at number 2 tight end now after his performance versus Georgia. But that tier 2 of guys that haven't played yet, they're going into year 2 or 3. This is a big spring. Really, it's a big winter conditioning for them because, this stuff really starts now. It's not like it's just when the helmets come on. It's like, you're doing wind sprints, conditioning, workouts, and these guys, the thing you don't realize about Ohio State is when you're doing conditioning drills, they usually have a GA, an intern, a strength staff member that charts everything. So if 2 guys race, it's like winner loser, who won that day. Then they pitch you against all these other things. So, and then they put this into this big computer thing and it'll spit out, okay, here's our most competitive guys, here's our least competitive guys. So really the competition starts now. So that's something for some of these young receivers, man. You gotta, if you don't have any production on the field, you gotta show out in the workouts so that they know that you're locked in and you're ready to compete for a spot when the spring starts. Because I'm telling you, it's ferocious. And when you've got these incredible true freshmen coming in that graduated early, you got 3 of them coming in. You got to remember they run 3 teams, generally 3 to 4 wide receivers a set. So if you're not in that top 6 to 10, then it's a bad deal. It's a tough gig, and that's why I always used to love spring ball, because these guys are, they're fighting for their lives basically. These guys all want to play, they all want to be Buckeyes, but is there a point where you're not good enough to be a Buckeye? You're not good enough to be the what you thought, and do you have to go elsewhere? Because again, to me, there's no shame in transferring if you just are at the bottom of the depth chart, you just want to play. I've seen it before. I've seen it with kids. I've seen really good players at Ohio State that contemplated transferring because they were stuck and they didn't have a role, and the coaches don't communicate sometimes. And honestly, the coaches lie a lot, which is something that I get from people in the Woody when they say that, oh, this is what they said. They said that my son was going to do this, or they said that he was going to be the starter, or he was going to be in competition. There's really no competition, but they just say that to keep you in a holding pattern so you don't transfer. So it's with the portal, man, I almost can't even fault a college coach for lying to a kid, because I don't know how you can be truthful and hold a roster together when if you really tell a kid, hey, you have no chance of playing here, the kid's out the door. If you give the illusion of competition, it's like, I don't know. And again, this isn't I'm not trying to say it's correct to lie in that thing with these kids, but it's a different world, man, because this portal it's a nasty beast, and there's kids that make emotional decisions, that make bad decisions, and kids that could end up helping you in a year or 2 or later on in the season end up taking off, and then your depth is shattered, and you're on a rebuild. I look at it with the offensive line. If Max Ray and Ryan Jacoby didn't transfer out, those are probably our starting tackles this year. Max Ray went to Colorado, suffered a career-ending injury. I believe he's a graduate assistant at Toledo now for the Rockets. But Ryan Jacoby is going to start for the Panthers this year at tackle. And it's when people are like, where are all of our tackles at? And I'm like, well, Go watch football on Sundays, and you'll see our tackles. You'll see Nick Petit first starting for the Titans. You'll see Thayer Munford starting for the Raiders. And you're going to see Paris Johnson starting on a top 10 team in the draft. And you're going to see DeWand probably going anywhere from the 3rd to 5th round in the draft as well. So, that's why with this portal, man, it's like, to me, depth is an illusion. When people say, why don't we have 6 tackles that can play? I'm like, well, because if you have 6 good tackles, 4 of them are going to transfer out and go start this year. They're not going to wait around for 2 years to go start elsewhere. So, but any thoughts of that, Nevada? I know that's a long diatribe on how to manage a roster in the portal era, but I don't know how you do it with the way kids are now and the way there's opportunity and the way that there's tampering. It's a whole different beast nowadays.
Well, I just think you have to be as relentless about it as other teams are, and I think you've got to have your assets allocated in a way to focus on that, to focus on portal kids and the opportunities that they provide to you as well. Because while kids can portal out, they can also portal out of other places into your school. So I think the answer for Ohio State is just to focus on the portals, cast that wide net, see who you can kind of get when you do that, and make sure that you're always evaluating players on other teams for potential transfer opportunities because that's recruiting never stops. Even when they go somewhere else, it should never stop, and it will never stop.
All right, we have this is our Handy Quacks Family Guy thought of the day for you, Nevada. Big Family Guy fans between Nevada and I. Mitchell Swanson, do we dare say the 2023 Buckeye defense outperforms the 2023 Buckeye offense next year? Year 2 in the system, returning 8 to 9 starters. Ooh, that's one that I got to hand to you, Nevada.
That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough one. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I think the offense next year is top 5. I think the defense next year is top 10. So I think that's kind of where we're at. I think that's the relative difference we're talking about. But I think they're both units are going to be strong. The only question we have on offense is the quarterback, as we've discussed. The only question we have on defense is the cornerbacks, and we've got one. Can we find another one? And can we find a nickel? Can we find some other pieces there on the defensive line? But no, it's going to be a great unit. I would not say it's going to outperform the offense, but I think it's going to be really, really close. And I think both units provide. I mean, Ohio State is short of Georgia's schedule. And if you want something funny, just pull up the 2023 Georgia football schedule. It is the worst football schedule that I've ever seen in my life. So it's almost like inconceivable that they could lose a game during the regular season next year. So I don't know how good Georgia's going to be, but I don't know how they're going to lose any games with that schedule. So, but do I think Ohio State will be one of the top 4? Yep. Do I think we'll be there in the end? Yep. And I think we're going to be one of the early favorites, and I think we should be one of the early favorites because we just don't have a lot of question marks on the team for 2023.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gonna be tough to outperform the offense when you have Marvin, Emeka, Trey. I think our offensive line is gonna be good. It might not be quite as good as this year, but I think that they could be every bit as good as this year, if that makes sense. I think that Josh Fryer potentially could be. He could match DeWan's production. I think Donnie Jackson might be a smidge lower than Paris. Luke Whippler is going to be an interesting guy to replace because I think that. If you go a 3rd-year center in Luke Whippler, who had a great year, and then you have a 6-year Matt Jones, who I think physically is actually stronger than Luke, and you put him at center, I think you could match that. Then it's just, Enoch and whoever, taking a step, going into the season as a starter. I think that you have a different mentality as a football player when you know that you're penciled in to start. Again, I mentioned sharpening your pencil, getting your mind right, ready to go as a starter for the 2023 season. And some of these guys have major opportunities. And then, you just chin it up. I mean, you got Justin Fry as running game coordinator. He can help, again, there's ways to protect guys if there's a guy that's leaky or a guy that's struggling or a guy who's not maybe quite as dominant as some of these guys. Because again, I look at the Cincinnati Bengals last night. They lost their left tackle, their right tackle, and their right guard. Three guys that all make over $10 million a year. And they filled in with a practice squatter, and Jackson Carman, who stinks. And guess what? They won the game. They figured it out. They ginned it up, and that's what Ohio State's going to have to do. And you got to remember, Ohio State doesn't play in the NFL. They don't play equal talent. In actually 100% of the games, we have better players than who we go against. I think we even had better players than Georgia. But you just got to make it work, gin it up. And that's just that's why they call you coach. Like in 2014, when we were returning Taylor Decker at left tackle as our only returning starter, and you put in Billy Price, who was a redshirt freshman. You put in Jacoby Bourne, who was a true junior. Pat Elflein was a fourth-year junior, and then you've got was a third-year sophomore, and then you add Darryl Baldwin, who never started a game. Like that line won a national championship. So I know a lot of people are in the dumps because we didn't get it done this year. But if you look at the history of Ohio State, the last two national titles that we won, nobody picked us to win the national title in the preseason. Not in 2002, not in 2014. Obviously in 14, we were projected to win the Big Ten, but then Braxton threw his shoulder out and was out for the season. So that threw a monkey wrench in the equation. So I just think, you got to be patient. You got to trust the process with these coaches, with these players, and just realize like we've got a lot of good momentum from that Georgia game. We proved that we could, basically, it's like going in the boxing ring with Mike Tyson when you play the Georgia Bulldogs and, and taking him to the distance. And it's a kind of like a really tight decision. And you might lose, based off the field goal kick. But, I think our guys are confident after that. This wasn't a, shellac by Michigan and then go play a 4-loss Utah team and beat them in the Rose Bowl. This is like, you played the defending national champions to the wire, and they were, they were scared to death. They were about to lose in Atlanta to the big bad Buckeyes. And if our kicker hits that field goal, then we do. But again, like one of the things I think we just need to get better is our special teams have really let us down the last couple of years, especially, against Michigan. We missed the fake punt twice, which is inexcusable, especially when you have a dedicated special teams coordinator. I don't think you can have a guy, you can't, if your guys don't execute it in the moment, then that means you didn't go over it enough. So Mason Arnold, the long snapper that has since transferred out to Michigan State, he blew it twice. I mean, the guys were ready to run it. He didn't snap it. So if you're the special teams coordinator, you didn't go over that play enough to get it right. And then, we botched the hold for the winning 50-yard field goal with Noah Ruggles. Because again, Noah Ruggles is an All-American kicker. So when he kicked that ball and he looked like some guy at like an NFL halftime thing kicking for 50 grand, I knew that there had to have been a tip. There had to have been a botched hold. There had to have been something, because like a kid like that who's made big kicks and he won the Rose Bowl on a kick last year, for him to hit it that poorly, something had to have gone wrong in the mechanics of it. So again, special teams letting us down. And again, like it's like Nevada said, you don't need them until you need them, but we really needed them. Yeah, see, there's Sue on Parker, DeWand. All right, Nevada, our boy Luke Fickell. How do you think Wisconsin is going to be this year under Luke Fickell? We have a huge game with them right at Halloween up at Camp Randall. That'll be national game of the year, I'm sure. Us going up to Camp Randall, Luke's first year. That'll be the game that every major Wisconsin donor will want to be at. Raucous environment. Camp Randall's fantastic, especially for night games, which I'm sure it will be, because it's right at the end of October. So it's right under the deadline where there's no November night games in the Big Ten. Nevada, your thoughts on Luke Fickell, his first year at Wisconsin?
Yeah, no, I think he's going to do great. I think he's really grown up as a head coach. Really put out some really quality Cincinnati teams with, not great talent. He took some guys there and really molded them into a great tough group. Though I'm sure the group will reflect, his toughness and his approach to football. And he's a perfect fit for Wisconsin. Yeah, I think he'll be a great, it's a great candidate for Ohio State should Ryan Day move on down the road. And I look at everything that Luke's done at this point as direct audition for the Ohio State head coaching job someday. And I wish him well in every game other than when we're playing the Buckeyes.
If Bill Belichick retired today and Ryan Day took the Patriots job, who would be your top 3 candidates if you were the athletic director at Ohio State?
Urban Meyer, and then Urban Meyer.
Oh man, I can't say I'm mad about that. I mean, you know.
Yeah, that's you have to turn to him in this situation. You have to turn to him because, you can't. I mean, Luke's really hasn't demonstrated that he's ready, and I'm not sure there's anybody else that's obvious. You go to Meyer, you give him the keys. You apologize for Michael Drake's transgressions. You give him the keys, and you let him rev the Ferrari back up on the road.
So I know when we get to a certain point, it's like I just want to watch some Devin Brown. Yeah, so Devin, again, this is like what I love about what he can do. This is such an easy play, a quarterback draw. But watch him put his foot in the ground here. Change direction. Like, that is the biggest thing that he has a lead on over Kyle McCord is just his overall mobility. I think that he's a thrower. I mean, the people I've talked to, the Woody Hayes say he's the guy who has the higher ceiling. He's the guy with superstar potential. Again, it's just, Kyle's been in the offense for 3 years. Devin obviously has been here for 2 years. Devin was kind of a late take after Quinn years were classified. But, you could imagine in our offense, if you add a quarterback that can scramble and go get the cheap, easy yards, what it would do. Because, I mean, you're going to have a lot of guys playing coverage versus our 2 receivers. Then you throw Cade in the middle of the field, Julian Fleming, Brandon Ennis, these guys in the middle of the field. I mean, there's going to be a lot of open lanes for a guy like this to kill guys. But, it's going to be real interesting to see what we do, how they split the reps. Do they truly rotate these 2 between the first huddles during the first few weeks of spring ball? I'd imagine Kyle McCord gets the first snap of the spring game with the starting offense just because, you got to try to keep him here, because, again, there's going to be that roulette. Is kind of a lot like Dwayne Haskins and Joe Burrow, where after spring ball, Joe saw that the staff was leaning towards Haskins. The staff was basically begging Burrow to stay. He didn't buy it, and he transferred out to LSU, which obviously turned into maybe the greatest move in the history of college football. Turned him into an absolute phenomenon, especially his 5th year when he had the most dynamic senior year in the history of college football. But yeah, Nevada, I think that we've got the more I watch Devin, and again, I think CJ, very good player. I frankly thought he lost a lot of meat on the bone when it came to running this offense sometimes, just because he just refused to run the ball, which again, it's not running him in the A gap, but there's times where he can really help the team out and go get 15 yards when teams are running off in man coverage, and he just refused to do that. And I think that he's going to have to adjust to that in the NFL, man, because in the NFL, you're not going to have 2 tackles that are better than every pair of ends you go against. You're going to get killed, if you just stand in the pocket and hope that Marvin, and frankly, whatever team drafts him, I don't think the receivers will be as good as Marvin and Emeka. And I could be dead wrong, but if he goes, for whatever reason, if they trade Justin Fields and CJ Stroud goes number 1 to the Chicago Bears, like, dude, you're throwing it to Chase Claypool and Equanimeous St. Brown and and you're used to throwing it at Marvin and Emeka, and you're also throwing versus Indiana and Rutgers, and even Georgia's back end wasn't really that good this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he translates into the NFL, how early they expect him to play. But the more I watch Devin Brown, the more I think that, if you really want to take the top off of this offense and really want it to be at its peak potential, I think he's the guy. Nevada, your thoughts on him? I know we talk a lot about Devin Brown, but you guys better get used to it because the quarterback battle is going to be the biggest topic of the entire the spring football stretch. But your thoughts on Devin versus McCord?
Well, I just think one of the most interesting evolutions that's gone on in pro football, I'd say as significant as like going to spread offenses and hurry up and some of the other innovations that they've gone is the utilization of the running quarterback. And you look at the 3 winning wild card teams this weekend. You've got Daniel Jones for the Giants. You got Joe Burrow for the for the Bengals, and you've got Trevor Lawrence for the Jags. And they're all it's guys that can pass well enough, but are also willing to use their legs. And look, the Giants were dialing up design quarterback runs against the Vikings, and the Vikings had no answer for it. And Jones would just kind of stumble. So I think people think when they think of the mobile quarterback, they think that you're thinking about everybody's got to be a Smurf like Kyler Murray or some little guy running around back there and it's going to get hurt, like RG3 or something like that. But no, we're talking about guys that are mobile enough to move, can throw well enough, but can also move the pocket with their legs. And that's what I see in Devin Brown. I think he's a guy who's a very capable thrower, but he's a willing runner. And having that willing runner, man, when it's the thing in the NFL, then it sure as heck has to be part of your arsenal in college football. Because college football, all you're worried about is 1 year, 2 years for these guys. The NFL, you're worried about your legacy with your quarterback, your franchise. You may have a quarterback for 10, 8, 10, 12, 15 years. You're worried about getting him hurt. In college football, you're worried about winning games today, tomorrow, next week. And you sure as heck can run a quarterback then. So, no, I think a mobile quarterback is key, and Devin certainly fits the bill on that. He's a good enough thrower, but he's an absolutely willing runner.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think that when you look at the new age of quarterbacks, again, Ben Roethlisberger is a dinosaur. He's retired. Brady, this could be his last game tonight. I mean, I imagine he'll probably try to go for another year, but these guys that aren't mobile, they just can't survive anymore. I mean, the way you look at how offensive linemen get hurt in the NFL and how you have to mishmash it, and you practice squad guy coming in. It's like with the Arizona Cardinals, like Billy Price. He wasn't even training camp with the team, and he ended up starting the last 10 games for the Arizona Cardinals. So you got some guys that they're not even in camp with you, and then all of a sudden they got to come in and they blow a protection, or they miss a blitz, or they miss a pickup or whatever, and then a guy's scot free. Like, you better be ready to run. I'm telling you, because there's teams in the NFL that they'll get a guy off the street like Baker Mayfield. He came in on a Tuesday, won a game on a Thursday. Like, I mean, there's crazy stuff that happens like that with offensive linemen all the time, where they'll sign you on a Tuesday and then you're playing on Sunday. And it's hard to know every protection, every blitz. If you're a guy that is a backup who hasn't played a lot, you're going to be targeted by the defensive coordinator. Jackson, as soon as Jackson Carman came in at left tackle for the Bengals last night, the Ravens knew it, and they went after him hard, and he gave up a really bad sack, got Joe Burrow absolutely killed. So, you better be ready to run from, those guys like Jason Pierre-Paul and some of these guys that can really run on the edge, because that's just how the game is. The defensive ends are so athletic, and they're so good now. You just have to be able to run for your survivability. Not to mention, it just puts such a strain on the defense when you do decide to run and you turn that, that 1st and 10 where you throw an incompletion, you turn it into instead of it being a 2nd and 10, you go scramble for 8 yards, you make it 2nd and 2. That's an absolute backbreaker. Changes all the calculus when you're dialing up which play you want to run next. Guys, keep these questions coming. You guys have had some great questions tonight. Appreciate you guys. Sue, this is another good one. Do you think Nevada, McCord's chemistry with Marvin might tip the scales in his favor? She doesn't know for sure. I also think that just his seniority, he's been there for 3 years. Devin's been there for 2 years. I think sometimes that you give the nod, when CJ got yanked from games last year when we were up by 7 touchdowns or whatever, it was always Kyle McCord who went in first. So obviously that's what we project as of this moment. Nevada, do you think any of the chemistry between Marvin and McCord will matter in any of this?
Yeah, I think it's going to be to something for sure. I think that might be the story. The question is the chemistry between Marvin and Kyle such a significant factor that it overrides the mobility of Devin Brown versus Kyle? And I think that's an open question. We'll see it a little bit this spring, and we'll certainly see it in full effect in the fall.
This is a great question. Mitchell Swanson, appreciate you, buddy. Who are starting safeties next year? You got Burke and Hancock projected as the starting corners, along with Ransom, Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, Jihad Carter in the slot. Your thoughts on that, Nevada, projecting the starting safeties?
Well, I mean, I think Jihad Carter's coming into, he thinks he's going to be a player. Lathan Ransom obviously is one of your safeties. Heck, if it was me, I'd put Sonny Stokes back there and just kind of, or Sonny Styles rather, Sonny Stokes. That's a
Sonny and
combination of Sonny and Kai. I like that, but Sonny Styles, that's what I'd put back there. Because you got to get him on the field. They got to get him on the field somewhere, and you can't get it done. You're not going to play him over Steel Chambers, and you're not going to play him over Tommy Eichenberg, but he's got to see the field. So if it was me, I'd put Ransom and Styles back there and live with the consequences.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that you got to play with your most athletic, most instinctive guys. I think that Kai's a great athlete, a plus athlete. I think Sonny's probably the most athletic guy on the entire team. Another year in the gym. Again, he's really age-wise, he should be. He's the same age as Carnell and Brandon Ennis, and he's already been in the program for a year or so. It'll be interesting to see if they can take the top off his development and see what his true potential is as he develops in the back end. Because I think he is the guy that could really be a big jumper. We talked about the Tommy Eichenberg, a guy that goes from people don't really know much about or people don't really like seeing him on the field to being a guy that could really make a big jump. He's going to be a guy that's got all the tools, all the ability. Again, when we played Wisconsin earlier in the year, he was in the fourth play of the game. They set him after the fullback who probably weighed 270 pounds and had a neck brace on, and Sonny killed the guy. And I was like, holy cow, this guy's not scared. He's a monster. And after that, it was like he didn't play for 8 games. So it was like, when I saw that he was in the fourth play of the game against Wisconsin, night game, big juice, and all of a sudden it was like, I was like, all right, he's going to start taking over and he's going to take somebody's spot. And then all of a sudden they just said, nah, you're not going to play until we're up by 70 points. And again, I thought the rotations last year, frankly, sucked. And I think that's something that these guys can do a lot better at, especially going into 23. I think you got to get your best players on the field. And I think that we had some guys that were sacred cows, and I think that they're graduating, and I'm happy for that. So it'll be excited to see if we get more of Sonny Stokes. That's going to be our new name for the safety combination of Kai Stokes and Sonny Styles is Sonny Stokes. So I like that. Nevada, Brad Smith, this is a great question. I always wonder about this. It says we watch a lot of JV defenses try out since Halfley left. The D-coaching has been bad for the MAC level and OSU. See, I don't buy the Jeff Halfley stuff. I know everybody loves Jeff Halfley because he coached here for 1 year in 2019 when we had the greatest talent maybe in Ohio State history on defense, maybe on offense too, but that was Chase Young's junior year where he was superb. Baron Browning, I think Davon Hamilton was still there. I mean, it was just unbelievable how much talent we had. And, we had Okuda, Arnett, Sean Wade, Jordan Fuller. So, Nevada, how much do you really give Jeff Halfley credit for? Obviously, that same group in 18 was no good versus just those guys developing and playing better.
Well, I mean, you look at that, how those guys have all, pretty much all developed on, and even guys that were buried on the depth chart have gone on to become really productive NFL players. So I just think it was just an embarrassment of riches from a talent perspective, and would love to have seen him more to get kind of a larger sample size to really evaluate him fairly. But there was a lot of talented guys on that side of the ball. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like right now. Last year, I was just cautioning people, like, let's not be too harsh on Knowles because look what he's having to deal with. Look what type of pieces he's got to work with on, at the cornerback position, at the safety position. He was doing it with duct tape and wire. And this year, he's going to have a lot more weapons to work with, and I think we can have higher expectations of how the defense does. But Halfley had some horses, man. He had some horses on the starting. He had some horses in the backups. There was just a lot of talent on that defense. And the last few years, defensive recruiting hasn't been as good, and the cupboard hasn't been quite as stocked on the defensive side of the ball. There's absolutely no question about it.
Yeah, I just think that the difference between last year's defense and the 19 defense was Chase Young. I think that the corners, obviously, Okuda was superb. He was a top 3 pick, fantastic. Arnett went first round. That was obviously a reach. Sean Wade was really good nickel. But if you put Chase Young on last year's defense, we probably won the national championship, just because the one thing that we didn't have last year, obviously our corner play left a lot to be desired. We did not turn the ball over like an Ohio State cornerback room should. But at the same token, man, we just didn't get after the quarterback enough, and we had, we were like mid-30s in sacks, 34, 35 sacks, but we didn't have that one guy that really drew the attention of a pass protection scheme. And like when you had Chase Young, I mean, you better turn the protection. You better help that tackle out, because he's going to absolutely massacre whoever he goes against. And he had the most productive year in Ohio State history at defensive end. And then, when we got real creative, we'd run some fronts where you'd throw Baron Browning at the opposite end. And he's had a fantastic start to his NFL career with the Denver Broncos. He's been very disruptive. Him and Jonathan Cooper have been fantastic on that defense. So it was enough for them to trade Bradley Chubb for a king's ransom, for a first and a third round pick from the Miami Dolphins. So it's really going to be interesting to see if JT or Jack, or JT and Jack, can take that jump. I mean, there's part of me as the show has gone on that makes me think Jack could be that Tommy Eichenberg type of guy where people, they're not high on him now, but by the end of next year, he could be the guy. I think Jack, was disappointed in his play. I think he was disappointed in the fact that he didn't play much compared to, what his projection was. Because, Jack was 5-star all everything, all world, and he was playing 15 plays, 20 plays a game. So, these guys, it's hard to get into a rotational rhythm when you're only playing 15 to 20 plays a game. So I think he might be the guy that I'd pick to be that Tommy Eichenberg guy that really breaks out next year as he gets into more of a groove. So we are going to wrap this, and we know that you guys are probably going to click over to that Monday night game between the Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bang that like button. We appreciate you guys. Fantastic questions tonight. Kudos to you guys. What a great show. Any final questions, Nevada? Any closing thoughts? Oh, I got to get my boy Paul in here. Last question, Nevada. Who will take Mitch Rossi's spot as fullback? I don't know if we have a guy that can do that. And would Chip be a possibility for defensive end? I don't know if Chip's tall enough to play defensive end. So I don't know. The Rossi spot is really particular because we don't really recruit that stumpy fullback kind of body. Our tight ends tend to be taller, angular guys. Like I really started with Jeff Harmon, Nick Vanette, Jelani Thurman. I think Cade is a guy that potentially could be that role just based on his body type. I think a lot more than Joe Royer or even G. Scott. But any thoughts on who could take the Rossi spot, and your thoughts on Chip as a defensive end, Nevada?
I think Chip's better off at running back or linebacker. And if you're looking for the next Mitch Rossi, I got him for you. Pound for pound, strongest guy in the team. Not a guy that a lot of people talk about. Not a guy that we don't really talk about a lot. And probably a guy that I hope stays around, doesn't transfer out. But it's Reed Carrico. That's who I'd put it.
Oh, wow.
That's who that's who I'd put it.
That is a great call. Wow. Yeah, Reed. That's a great call. I never thought of Reed. I've heard guys say that Reed can absolutely float. That guy's a 4'6" guy. Has no role on the defense yet. It's hard when you only play two linebackers 99% of the time to carve out a role. But wow, what a great call! If Reed Carrico could chip in and do something there, that'd be fantastic. So, good. Any parting shots, Nevada? We will do this again tomorrow at 7:00, guys. So set your clocks. We will see you then. Any parting shots, Nevada?
Tampa Bay, go cover the spread for my teasers tonight. Tampa, I need one more good game out of old man Tom Brady. So just keep it close. Keep it close against America's team.
The last of the slow quarterbacks. He's gonna probably go down tonight, and he gets to go to his big Schembeckler hole in the sky. So I like that. Well, all right, there you go. There's your call for the night. You got the Ohio State Bucks and the Tampa Bay Bucks joining forces. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're on BuckeyeScoop.com 24 hours a day, it feels like. We've been breaking news, analyzing CJ Stroud's decision, A lot of winter conditioning stuff is going to be upcoming, so we'll have updates on that. What young guys look good in drills, which guys are showing out for the young freshman class. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you could hit that like button, that'd be huge. Click subscribe as well if you enjoy this content. The subscriptions are huge for us. They really help us grow the channel, and it's all thanks to you guys. So we try to build the content around what you guys like. So comments are always welcome. Comment, who do you think will be our starting quarterback next season? Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, maybe Lincoln Kineholtz. You guys want to be a little bit crazy. So, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in. We love doing these with you guys. Appreciate you guys joining us. We will be on at 7 again tomorrow. We will be talking ball, probably do some recruiting breakdowns, but we'll have some good stuff for you guys. So we appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.